From Bulu Box, Paul Jarrett. First, some supporters to thank, and thank you for listening.
This episode is supported by CCW Digital, leaders responsible for operations, information technology, contact centers, customer care, service, and support are invited to register for a free CCW Digital membership. Membership includes networking with 100,000 plus qualified industry professionals, quarterly executive research reports, product matchmaking, and more. Go to ccwdigital.com to join the community. This episode is also supported by the CCW Conference and Expo. The event will empower you to test, learn, and try the next big thing in customer experience optimization. Are you interested in mining data across touch points for personalized and predictive data? Are you trying to integrate your systems to get a more complete view of the customer? Are you figuring out what innovations to invest in? Chatbots, virtual assistants, AI, VR, biometrics, to name a few? Go to callcenterweek.com to register.
Paul Jarrett joins us to discuss his and Bulu Box's journey. After an initial launch into a hyper-niche market, Paul was pleased to find a more general yet still specific consumer. Paul explains that his wife and co-owner is actually the brains behind the operation. Each of them had worked with brands throughout their careers, and they knew they'd be lying to themselves if they went chasing after an audience. And so they met their customers where they were and were off and running. Originally from Nebraska, Paul grew up in a trailer park, which helped him form his work ethic and how to deal with people to ensure success. Having raised 2 rounds of capital with hockey stick consumer growth, Paul and Bulu Box are well on their way. Welcome to CCW Digital on B2B IQ. I'm your host, Seth Adler. Download episodes on ccwdigital.com or through our app in iTunes, within the iTunes podcast app, in Google Play, or wherever you currently get your podcasts. Paul Jarrett.
I have a good feel for it.
There you go. So Bulu Box, let's get this out of the way.
Yep.
What are we talking about?
Bulu Box is a discovery commerce subscription box. For $10 a month, we ship our customers 4 to 5 premium vitamin, supplement, healthy snack samples. Our customers get a little orange box every month. Mm-hmm. They get to try new things. If they provide feedback to us, they get a discount on full-size products. And then we end up trying to get them kind of on repeat delivery of, your vitamin D or your gummies or whatever it is.
So is this just kind of gym guys and gals, or what are we talking about?
I wish it was. When we first started, I kind of had that like paleo, CrossFitter, hardcore Ultimate Fighter guy in mind.
Sure.
And we launched it very broadly as a vitamin and supplement box. And those guys wanted nothing to do with it.
No.
And so who picked up on it were females 22 to 44. Kind of the females that are doing those 5K couch competitions, right? Those half marathons.
Maybe and then, a Tough Mudder here or there.
Exactly. And then we also have a big subscriber base that are kind of hardcore female athletes that are willing to do whatever it takes to go to the next level. And so, I am a poor 6'4", 250 bearded ogre guy over here. I'm a poor representation.
Yeah, you have nothing to do with the brand.
Yeah, like in we have majority females at our company, female board members.
Right.
I am not a good representation of our company.
Now, your wife, though, is part of the company, right?
Yes, she's our co-founder. She is the brains behind the operation.
I can see that from here, right?
I'm the front man.
There you go.
I'm the mascot. It was just one of those things where we didn't want to go into denial. We had we had been working at companies for about a decade in advertising, and we knew that we would be lying to ourselves if we were going to chase after an audience. And we said, okay, this is who's buying from us. Let's focus in on that customer. And, thank God we did, because, I've seen other boxes kind of chase after that knucklehead, me.
Right.
Me, basically.
Right.
And guys like me, we're very opinionated on supplements and don't you dare tell me what to take. I know what to take.
Yeah.
I know how much protein to take.
Yeah, you know better than everybody.
Right, exactly. And so, and it's been very fortunate. And then we've just expanded to kind of offering our turnkey subscription box solutions to other people. So we don't just have Bulu Box, we have other companies that we work with.
So you white
boxes.
label? Is that
Exactly.
Wow, all right.
Yeah.
So but let's first do Bulu Box.
Absolutely.
How do we get a name like Bulu Box, which I can't stop saying, which is one of the things I'm sure.
Do you want to know? This will be the first time in any sort of a media that I actually tell people what the name is.
I'm in.
Oh, man. So we haven't told anybody forever.
Okay.
And that was, media hated us for it because we said, well, only 4 people know the secret and nobody's going to find out.
Right.
But
that's the J. Crew mentality, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah, sure.
So we just recently started telling people.
Okay.
And the sad truth is that, you know how there's always a great story about the name? Mm-hmm. There's no story about the name.
This is a terrible... So you're saying I'm going to reveal... Here's a huge reveal.
Yeah.
There's nothing to see here.
Yep. It's like the Wizard of Oz. And we just couldn't think of a good story. I mean, you talk to founders and they make up stories about the names, right? The story,
I feel like you should be making one up.
It doesn't get better than this, right? Like here's the best story.
Okay.
We were originally Buku Box.
Oh.
And we had somebody that had an issue with the name and the URL, and one of my first phone calls was with a person about the legal ramifications and I turned around and looked at my wife and said, "We're not doing Buku Box."
No.
Nope.
No.
Like, I do not want to start this off.
Why would we swim in those waters?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then our first pitch ever, they knew us as Buku Box, and we walk in with T-shirts, materials, everything that says Bulu Box. Mm-hmm. And you know the old joke of like, oh, the ink was still drying? Like, the ink was literally still drying on the decks that we were handing out to people.
Crazy.
And Bulu was, I think, number 2 or 3 on our list. And really it boiled down to Google AdWords and being able to own a name. And it had a few, simple, unique. We wanted a concrete thing with it, which is the box.
Yeah.
And it just checked all of the boxes without any legal ramifications. So the story is there is no story. Google loved it.
I gotta disagree with you. First off, you guys, you said your agency, you're marketing people, you know how marketing goes. Yep. So you were obviously, in digital and saying it's got to work in digital. You had Buku, and here, if I may, you just went one letter up from K. So it's, we're just one better than we used to be.
There you go.
Which is how we live every day, Paul.
There you go. I like that. Yep. So that's you got the scoop.
There you go.
I love it. Scoop.
Here's the scoop. There is no scoop. All right. So where are you from?
So I am originally from Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh, so you are from Nebraska.
Yeah,
that's how that happened.
Yep.
All right. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in and this is not going to shock you at all.
Yeah.
Trailer park in Nebraska.
Oh, so this is what I was kind of getting at. All right. So now
I'm not your normal Nebraskan.
Is that true? Because I'm from New York, so this is the whole problem, is that I have no idea what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
You have no idea what I'm taling about, but you do because you lived in New York.
Yeah, so I'd say take probably like the roughest part of Jersey, maybe. Mm-hmm. That'd probably be the closest. Or I lived in Queens and Jackson Heights, and like I felt fine there. It felt like normal.
So you're in trailer park in Lincoln, Nebraska. Folks are doing what? Were both of them there? What's the deal?
Dad was a police officer. Mom she was a nurse and ended up taking over trailer by trailer. Mm-hmm. We ended up buying the trailer park.
Look at that.
So people would ditch out and, there'd be a trailer sitting there. And she'd say, through this, I don't even know how she did it, but basically we're like buy these trailers for $1. So we're basically flip trailers.
Oh, wow.
And she did that for 35 years, ended up buying the trailer park. Mm. And my parents are now, the typical multi-millionaire, many times over, but Dad drives a used truck, still police officer. You would never know it. I say this about my mom, and she's mortified when I say this. She takes ketchup packets from Burger King and squirts them into our ketchup bottle at home. So we were poor as could be.
There you go. You got to do it.
But entrepreneurs at heart.
I absolutely entrepreneurs at heart. I have a very good group of friends that are actually a group of siblings that grew up in a trailer park, just like you're saying. And really, that defines them to them. Yep. So that these are some of the most successful people I know, and every time that we talk, that comes up somehow. Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I find it coming up a lot. I don't feel like I I say people, most people you can bucket them, but people probably, find me polarizing or get frustrated with me because you can't kind of bucket me. And it's not intentional, but I think as I look back and be, a little bit, I'm 35 and actually take some time to like self-reflect. If you look at the trailer park, you want to talk about churning through friends, like I had, people coming and going all the time. Also, my earliest memory was very like AC/DC. My favorite car is like an El Camino.
Well, that's
right?
mine too. That has nothing to do with anything other than that's a cool car.
Yeah, right? There you go. And it was. I say this because I feel like I'm in the group, but like it's very white trash. Like that's how you would classify us, right?
Well, I see what you're saying.
Back in
now,
the 80s.
the El Camino has risen as far as everyone's
like cool now,
understanding
right?
exactly.
But then what would happen is different groups would come through, and we had like a bunch of Jamaican and then Hispanic. And then, I just drove through not too long ago as Sudanese. And what happened was there's a strong Catholic presence, and Catholic social services brings in a lot of refugees. So imagine, every 5 years of your life, you're just in a whole new group. I remember when a lot of Vietnamese people came over. Everybody had rabbits in their yards. And I was like, oh, this is great. Like everybody, little Fluffy, And then all of a sudden one day I'm riding my bike around and little Fluffy's getting clubbed. And, and so you can imagine, which sounds terrible. It's a terrible story. But being exposed to those cultures and having, I have best friends that, I celebrate Chinese New Year with, right? And so I think that is what defined the culture of the trailer park is being forced into a situation and having to get along with whoever it is. Because if you didn't, you're going to get beat up.
Yeah, sure. Well, maybe not you, but maybe they would, right? Were you always this big? Because you're just larger than me, right?
No, I was a string bean.
Oh, you were? Yeah. All right, so this came later.
Oh, yeah. The reason I got big is because I got beat up so bad in the trailer park. That's why.
There you go. Okay, so
Eminem learned to rap, and I just learned to hit the weight room to defend myself.
Got it. All right. So that's the home turf. When you were a kid, how did you kind of make good on that? Obviously, your folks are working on it as you're a little kid because they turned the whole thing around. But how did you make it from high school to college? And all that.
So I think, I think for my parents, what I took away from them was how to deal with people when my mom was collecting rent and my dad was a cop. And, my mom would make me deliver eviction notices when I was little to people that we bought trailers and rented them out to. And then also it was very encouraged to, oh, you want that? Go make your own money.
Yep.
And so any sort of, everybody has their, I sold candy bars or I sold whatever. I did everything. Like you name it, I would,
if you could sell it, I did.
Columbia and, all that Columbia House CDs and all that.
Oh, sure.
Stuff. I had all sorts of hustles figured out. And then I think, for me, what happened was my father basically said, if you want to go to college, you got to get a athletic scholarship or some sort of scholarship because we're not paying for anything. And so, my brother got, academic scholarship, sister had academic or athletic, and me, it was clearly athletic or nothing at all.
This is where we were going to go, or we weren't type of thing.
Exactly. So I got really good at football really fast, although I actually don't even think I liked it that much looking back on it.
That's not the point, is it?
No, it was like I wanted to get in and get out and go do something. And so
really good at what position?
So I actually played tight end and defensive end. And then when I got to college and actually started eating correctly and working out correctly, I blew up to a 315-pound nose guard.
Whoa.
Yeah.
What college?
Iowa State.
All right.
Yeah,
so they play
Cyclones.
Football there.
Yeah, Big 12, baby.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So you were on the field. You were doing it.
Oh, yeah, starting. And I wasn't warming the bench. I was full scholarship starting.
What did you learn on the field being a nose tackle in the muck, if you will, right?
Yeah. Mechanics. If you are not okay, so if you're going to say there's the super athletic guys that can get by on talent, I had a little bit of that, but it was more mechanics. And if my footwork was half a second off or my hands were in the wrong place, I was going down for the count. And so I think for me it was very much learning that the mechanics mattered and the discipline mattered. And unfortunately, I just wasn't a guy that could do motivation with talent.
How do you mean?
the super athletic, great players, they're not disciplined. Like in my experience, a lot of them aren't disciplined in practice, and they're not disciplined in the weight room, and they can get by on that because they just get fired up on game day, and they're just freaks of nature on the field, right? And then there's the other guys. We're called the Rudies,
from the movie.
Exactly. And boy, you got to make every conditioning, every weight room. You got to eat. You need every single detail to be perfect in order to be a starter or make it on game day. And so I think that's what it taught for me is that, in business, I don't look at things like a magic bullet or a one-off. I look at things like, how can we make a process, get it down, and repeat and have the discipline to do it over and over. And I think that for us has created solid foundations versus these kind of like, one-off things.
Just throw the dart at the wall a couple different times. So, all right. So Iowa State, nose guard. He's making his way. He's starting. When did you turn on the brain,
So the year after I started, and I was a freshman, so it was a big deal.
That's a big deal, yeah.
Yeah, in the Big 12. I was like, I'm not having fun. I don't like this. And I just gave it up cold.
No.
Yeah.
But that's the scholarship.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and then what did you do?
I did nothing for a year.
What?
Yeah, crazy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I just had this moment where I was like, I saw a lot of the guys graduating and, head injuries, neck injuries. Like, man, that's a whole nother conversation.
I see, but it was partly that you were like, I don't want that.
I saw those, and I said, oh, that's where I'm fitting in. I already have had a neck injury, a shoulder injury, tore my Achilles. I'm fine. I'm healthy now. But that is the most likely path I see for myself. I don't even know if I like what I'm doing. I just need to figure things out. So I quit, and I just started doing random jobs. I think the smartest thing I did was I bought a computer. I bought a brand new MacBook.
Okay.
I don't actually remember if it was a Mac. It was a Mac. And I knew nothing about anything, and I just forced myself to start using it and figuring it out and building websites and doing,
So it's like, okay, brain time. Got to depend on my brain.
I literally spent like $3,000 on a computer, and it showed up, and I was like, what have I got into?
All right.
And what is the first thing I started to do? I started ripping music and selling it.
Okay.
And so I started doing that.
There you go. Back to the Columbia House days.
Yep.
So what year was that?
It's probably 2002, 2003.
Right. Napster days.
Yeah, it's like, LimeWire was actually when I was using. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. And so I started doing that and, just figuring out. I truly do believe, I'll say this, my kid will not play football. There was probably for the first time in my life that I was allowed to kind of like stop and think, and I wasn't getting concussions and I wasn't having any of those issues. And I was allowed to kind of like think, and GPA shot up to like a 3.8. And
so you went back to school after the year.
Yeah, so after I got to finish out that year on the scholarship. Started kind of hustling on my own to make money, and then I actually went to the University of Nebraska, got in-state tuition.
Right.
Applied for scholarships. I'm like, it's easy if you just put in the time, it's actually really easy to get scholarships.
Started to realize the system for what it was and start to maybe game that system type of thing.
Totally. So I did well, finished out school there. Then I got into the advertising industry.
And so you were building websites kind of as a side hustle, right? Is what we call it now.
Yep.
And that was what the foray into kind of advertising was?
Yeah, I actually started doing bar flyers.
Okay.
Flyers for bars. I was working as a bouncer, and I heard what the graphic designer was making, and I was like, well, I could do that. I could not do that. But I went home and I just, figured it out. Yep, figured it out. And started making good money that way. And just, I actually thought that I was going to be kind of graphic design branding was originally, and found out that although I did very well in that space, I could not sit and design and do branding and frankly not have the metrics to understand if like a better logo actually helps anything.
Well, and you're also talking about sitting still, I think, which I would imagine you're not a big fan of.
No, go. Go get you done. Move. Yep.
So you're still in Nebraska at the time, or?
So, well, after I was at Iowa State, I went back to Nebraska.
Right. Graduated.
Actually, I left school and took a job at an ad agency in New York City.
Oh, you did?
Yep.
All right. So you didn't graduate.
Yeah. How much time do we have? Because I have a really interesting story on how I got to New York City.
Let's do that.
All right. So
we have time for really interesting.
Okay.
Is the answer.
Gotcha. So I was at the University of Nebraska, killing it in school. You know, I was the kid with the Mac, and what were we using? We were using Quark Express.
Oh, sure.
Working for the newspaper, so I was making money off the newspaper, doing flyers, doing websites, and I was making a lot, you know, thousands of dollars a month as a college kid. Like, that was good money.
Absolutely good money. That's tremendous money.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then as I went to go get a internship in the Midwest, I could not even get through to anybody. And I'm like, man, I'm better than some of the designers on staff
that you guys
there,
are paying. Yeah.
Right? And I just could, and I got so frustrated that I thought, okay, what is the best of the best? And for my simple thinking, it was like New York City, Nike.
Sure.
That's the best you can do.
And when did you find out that they're actually in Portland?
What? I'm sorry. What?
When did you find out that Nike's actually in Portland?
Oh, yeah. I knew that, but I just thought advertising New York City.
Got it.
Nike, big brand.
Yeah, brand
right?
I like,
yeah,
Nike.
Yeah,
I got you.
That's my simple thing. Yeah. Actually, I don't even know if I knew that at the time. Now that I'm thinking back on it, I probably didn't.
But it got you to New York,
Yeah,
right?
it got me there. So what I actually did then was just out of sheer anger towards not being looked at locally. I put together 300 packets, shipped them all as a resume, portfolio, all that stuff. Shipped it to 300 different ad agencies. And on the cover letter, it said, I'm giving up my spring break. I will be in your lobby at this day, at this time. Whether you look at this packet or not, I'd appreciate 5 minutes with you. And so I sent all of those off. I sent 300 of them. And then I followed up, phone call, every single one. Just, I think I gave it 5 calls for each one. So
Look
5 times
Paul.
300.
Yeah.
And I packed up my Ford Focus and I drove out there. I slept in the airports because that's one thing I learned is that people don't care if you go to an airport, you can just go crash in there because they think you're missing a flight.
Oh,
or
sure.
whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Look at that. His flight got canceled.
Yep. And also I became very fond of nuts because those will keep you full for a long time. So Ford Focus, LaGuardia Airport, and peanuts.
As you know, that's good fat in the
Exactly.
nuts. Right?
Now, yeah. Back then it wasn't. It was just gross peanuts. And I finally was able to get through to 35 people, which I also learned a valuable phone trick. Hi, is Susan there? Susan? Yeah, I have a package for Susan in HR. Oh, we don't have a Susan in HR. Really? Because I have a package here, and it says Susan from HR. Is there somebody else? Oh, do you mean blah, blah, blah? No, I don't mean that person. Do you mean blah, blah, blah? No, I don't mean that person. Who's in charge of HR? Oh, well, that's Roy. Oh, Roy. Hang up the phone, call back, and say, I need to speak with Roy in HR.
Yeah.
Instantly connected.
Like you know who you're going out. There you go.
And then I say, hey, Roy, you don't know me. I sent you, a package, blah, blah. And they would laugh that I just even got through with them.
Sure.
They were getting pulled out of meetings because, this guy meant business and he needed to talk to you in HR. And so I got through, ended up having 12 interviews in New York. And some of them were, they would come down at the time. I never spoke with them. And they're like, holy shit, you're here.
You really are.
I'm here.
Yeah.
And some of them went unbelievably terrible. And I got screamed out and kicked out of places. And you just can't imagine it. And of that,
I can actually.
I
know
guess
the
in New
language
York.
that we use in New York, and I'm sure you got some of that, right?
This is not how you apply for a job for an internship.
With extra words in between,
Yep.
I'm sure.
And a lot of different accents too, like a lot of London British accents. I just would giggle. I'm like, it sounds funny getting kicked out by somebody with like a British accent for some reason. It's funnier. And out of that 335, people talked to me, 12 interviews. I ended up only getting 3 offers. and only one of them was paid. And I kid you not, and they're probably going to shudder if they hear this, but it was a group called Renegade Marketing. They're actually just Renegade now, and their client was Nike Running.
Get out of here. Look at you.
Yep.
So you actually envisioned this whole thing, and you did it, and you made it happen.
It did not go as planned, but I knew the goal, and I knew and it was that whole discipline and metrics. And I just thought, I have to do every mechanical thing.
There you go.
I have to put out my workout plan, and I have to follow it. And even when I don't think it's going to work, I have to have the discipline to hold through it. And sometimes it doesn't work out, but usually in that process, something really awesome kind of happens. And we've raised 2 rounds of capital for our company, and it's that same process that I go through.
Well, let's make sure we get from the Nike paid internship to, or the Renegade paid internship to the 2 rounds of capital. How long could Paul Jarrett possibly have stayed at the Renegade marketing firm or whatever?
So I was there, and I didn't have my degree, and the job came up for the Nike account, and they asked me to do it.
They did.
Mm-hmm. So it was literally a 5-year career advancement. And I think it was just because I was not afraid to call Nike and make them pay their bills on time.
Right, sure.
It was literally, I feel like all I did. And it was valuable enough that it was just hire that guy because he'll chase him down.
Yeah, you got to pay, guys.
Yeah, cash flow, baby. What are you doing? Pay your bill. You're Nike. You can pay your bills.
You can find it.
You're Nike. What? You want a Palm Pilot to pay your bill? Fine, I'll buy you a damn Palm Pilot. Pay the bill.
There we go.
But somebody somehow convinced me that it was more important to go back and get my degree. So I did that. And
back to Nebraska again?
Yeah, and it actually set me back a little bit. So
is that one of the kind of regrets? I have a few. This is one of them.
Yeah, it sounds funny, but yeah, college degree is actually my regret. And then
because it took you off the path.
Took me off the path, and also raising capital. One of the things that the biggest venture capital firms look for is people without degrees.
Oh, they want a person without a degree.
Because that is you telling society that I don't need you. I'm going to do it on my own.
Well, that's the Peter Thiel thinking. If you are this person, then be this person type of thing.
Yep. And Bill Gates, Zuckerberg, you look at some of the best entrepreneurs, and a lot of them don't have their college degrees. And I also think a lot of them. And I'm not saying don't get your degree.
Yeah, no.
I'm just saying, to your point, if you know who you are, be that person, right? And I always thought, college, let alone a communications, what a sham. What? What? I don't have any sort of there's no bar exam, there's no anything. You're just going to give me a degree for communications and chart. This is a joke.
All right, well, let's move on quickly, Paul, because I think we've made the point there. What was the next? The next step, was it, Bulu Box?
No, so then I just kind of, I worked at agency to agency.
Oh, you just kept on going.
I just, worked at BBDO, Gray Worldwide, did the agency thing.
So good, big agencies, right?
Big, yep. My wife was a creative, and I was the account guy.
At which one?
She worked at Kirschenbaum Bonds. I think it's KBP now.
Yes, it is.
Who else did she work for?
Where did you guys meet is what I'm getting at.
Oh, so we actually met in Nebraska, and then she was president of the ad club. And when I said, hey, I'm going out here, and she thought it was pretty cool. And so when I went back out to New York a second round, because I basically said, okay, I have my degree now. And they're like, okay, well, come back and work for us. That was stupid, but you can come back and work on Panasonic. And I was
whatever.
Cool, great.
Yeah.
And so my wife came with me, and we did, then Gray in San Francisco. And
she's from Nebraska as well?
Yep.
All right.
Wahoo, Nebraska.
Wahoo, Nebraska. That's where all the stuff for David Letterman.
There you go. Bingo. Bingo.
You waited for it. You knew where I was going.
Knew it was coming, man.
All right, so then you guys, Nebraska, New York, Nebraska. Then we go over to San Francisco because who gets a job?
So I actually went to go work for a startup out there.
All right.
So I had worked at a company and helped it go from 3 to 83 million in sales, and kind of experienced a rocket ship startup thing, and was like, man, this is fun. This is super boring now that it's
Up
operating,
here. Right.
and things are fine. And I have the corner office and big team, and I'm just, tweaking things.
Well, what was your role in that startup?
I started off as marketing guy. And we were, we had a garage basically. I mean, it was nicer than a garage, but we had, we were shipping and receiving products there. and turned into, it was just like literally marketing guy, turned into VP of marketing, part of the executive board. And really, I think what I picked up there was...
Well, what company was it?
It's called Complete Nutrition. It was a high-end GNC.
Got it.
And we had a couple locations, and then we had hundreds of locations, vitamin supplements, And really what I picked up there was the founders are a different breed, right? And my I clicked with the founders. And it was, I say in the Midwest that we are all taught to be very conservative, go get your 401k, your benefits, be a nurse, a teacher, a firefighter.
Lock it in.
Yeah, exactly. And work your butt off. And, when you're 60, you retire and whatever. And that's what we're all taught. So there's a lot of unteaching, if you will, for people that have that entrepreneurial mindset in the Midwest. And what I saw there was that founders are a different breed, and we are not the smartest people in the room. We are probably the crazy get shit done people. And I really related with the founders, and I went, oh man, I need to be around founders. I was still in denial that I was a founder. I didn't, I think, have the guts to do it, but I had some friends in San Francisco, and they started telling me they had sold the company to eBay. And they had told me...
That's the exit that everyone's looking for, by the way.
Yep,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, they told me all about, venture capital funding and whatever, and moved out there, and we started negotiating, and I was actually on a sailboat with them, and I'm like, what am I doing here, negotiating my equity on a sailboat? I've never been on a sailboat. There's dolphins in the San Francisco Bay around them. I'm like, what have I got myself into? And then it just kind of, coming back and negotiating, I thought, man, 4%, that's cool, but man, I didn't have anything at Complete Nutrition. Advertising, I made people a lot of money. I'm tired of making other people money.
Yeah.
And this venture capital funding, what do you mean if it fails, I don't have to pay it back? Because in the trailer park, when you didn't pay, they came and repoed your El Camino.
Yeah,
that was my world,
yeah.
right?
Black is black. White is white. It's black and white. This is happening. That's that.
Exactly. And I thought, okay, so wait, I can raise capital. And it just kind of all clicked one day. And I actually had a really great friend from New York City that was out visiting, and he was an entrepreneur. And he said, man, I don't care what you do. I will put in money from day one. He's like, it doesn't matter. And
that's a proper VC who believes in the team, who believes in the founder, right?
And he had just seen me kind of touch a few things, and there was some success there. And he is, thank God for him. He was the one that said, whatever it is, just make sure you're passionate about it. And I'll cut your first check, and I'll connect you with people, and I'll hold your hand, because Lord knows I had no clue what I was doing. And I think he knew, and his wife is a Midwesterner, and I think he knew sometimes, in particular in the Midwest, the entrepreneur needs maybe a little shove off the cliff before they jump, or maybe a pillow at the bottom if they're going to jump.
Either one, right? Yeah.
There's one of those, just a little bit of I believe in you, and it'll be all right, and it's just money, and who cares? You have your whole life to worry about all that other stuff. And so I had that person, which I'm forever grateful to. And I had an idea, and it was a terrible idea, and he said, I'll back it. And then somebody did that terrible idea. And then we had another idea that actually started getting traction when we just built the Bulu Box website.
Okay.
And I contacted him and said, man, this thing, people are signing up to receive an email about when we sell boxes. And he's like, I think this is a brilliant idea.
This is the thing.
This is the thing. And, how much do you want? And I was like, thank you. I've done all my calculations, and I've figured it out. And I think that, to get this thing off the ground running, it's going to be $25,000. And he said, well, I'm going to wire you the money. I was like, awesome. He goes, and also you made two huge mistakes. First,
I was waiting for it.
First, you need way more than 20. Let me help you out. You're going to need $1 million.
There you go.
So start there and start working. Well, no, I think it's okay. Stop, Paul. You're wrong.
Yeah.
And this $25K might cover your legal expenses and your living and whatever. Second mistake is like, we have no contract, no term sheet, no anything, and whatever. And so, he walked me through all of those, and now I look back and I'm like, oh man, like talk about somebody that really had faith in me.
Well, this is why they call them angel investors.
Yeah. Yep.
Right? I mean, and he did more than his part without question.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, I didn't even know. I tell people like, I didn't even know what to Google. Right.
Sure.
I didn't even know the difference between venture capital or angel investing or what that was. And so, this guy helped me through all of that, and it was life changing, and it's been good since then.
Yeah. So you got the proper amount of money. How'd you talk your wife into this whole thing, or how'd she talk you into it?
So she, it's so great. It's like you knew the question to ask. So I was working on this idea, and she was doing design for Leapfrog and Pixar. So by day she's doing,
which is big. That's big stuff.
Yeah.
This is a talented person.
She's very talented. And then also we had, of course, I had my side hustle, and we're doing Facebook pages for Visa and NFL. And so, we're doing all of these different things, and things are good, and we're turning away work. And so I just remember, 1 week where she was getting up at like 5 a.m. to have conference calls with like NFL and Visa and Facebook pages. She's going to work all day while I'm working on Bulu Box, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then she'd come home at night, and I'm like, okay, on the website I have, these. Yeah. And she did that for quite a while. And finally she came home one day from work, and she was super excited. And she's like, hey, I have a great idea. And I was like, I was just excited seeing her, because I was like, man, it's got to be great, because look how thrilled you are. And she's like, I quit my job and I work on Bulu Box full time with you. And I was like, I literally couldn't bring myself to say anything, but I was like, I think that is a phenomenal idea. In my head, I'm like, oh shit, how are we going to pay for our apartment, like benefits and everything? And I said, I think that's a great idea. And I thought that it might be like, we'd have a few drinks or we'd have dinner, and it's like, hey, this is a terrible idea. And we work so closely together, and so much that like I kind of felt like we had that conversation of, okay, let's be real, it's a bad idea or whatever. And a few days pass, and she comes home from a Friday at work, and she goes, I did it, and they were cool about it. They let me quit now, and I'm getting my 2 weeks. I'm like, wait, what? Huh? And she's like, no, I quit remember we talked? I'm like, oh, great. And I just kind of went with it, and I didn't even tell her that story until like we had got funding, because
right.
It was like we were too deep down the path.
So, I mean, what's it like working with your wife?
My wife and I have worked together at agencies or agency client or whatever. And
so you had spoken the language together.
We joke and say our marriage would fail if we didn't work together.
There you go.
Well, we enjoy work. We enjoy each other. It sounds super cheesy. We're best friends. We're like, we're great partners. We know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and there's no way we'd have any level of success without each other. For sure, me without her. So.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Again, I'm looking at you. I can see that.
Yeah, she keeps me on the straight and narrow.
There you go. All right, so how'd we get from she quits the job to first round?
Yeah, so we put a pitch together. Mm-hmm. Buddy of mine lived in Nebraska. He had some warehouses and some other things, and he actually called me and said, hey, I got a question for you. Is it true that like rent is like $2,000 for like 1,000 square feet in San Francisco? I go, nope. And he goes, man, I was talking to a guy and I knew it was fake. I knew he was bullshitting me. And I go, no. So we're in 380 square feet, and it's $2,800. And it's probably going to be more. I could make money subleasing. And he could not wrap that, because he has warehouses and rental property. And,
right, so those numbers literally don't make sense to him.
Literally, he's like, what is wrong with people? And so he said, well, what are you up to? And I told him about Bulu Box, and that I had a friend that was an investor, and we were having signups. And he said, well, we just started an investment group in Nebraska. Do you want to come back and pitch? And I said, sure. My thinking was I can totally screw up a pitch in Nebraska.
Totally.
Nobody would know it in the Valley.
And learn from it.
Yep.
And yeah.
Exactly. And he said, I think it was Christmas, actually. I said, well, I'm coming home for Christmas. And he's like, great, next week. I'll schedule it for blah, blah, blah. We had no business plan. We had no deck. I was halfway through Guy Kawasaki's The Art of Start. Like, I had no idea. And I was like, yeah, no problem. I'm thinking a pitch is like sit around and have a conversation.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it, right? And then their person calls and they're like, okay, will you submit your materials or whatever? I actually started uploading like fake, like, you know, PDF X. Like, I'm like, oh, that's not working. I'm like, oh, well, let me try it next week.
Right,
like,
I got
give me a day or
just
two.
Got a thing
like,
let me get it.
I've got to convert a file. I'm sure those darn images, you know. And I'm looking at my wife like, we got to pull this together quickly. But we had never worked harder.
Yeah.
We were sleeping in 4-hour increments, waking up. I would go to bed. She would work. She would hand over stuff. And we wrote everything. And mind you, there's an entrepreneurial group that I became a part of. We actually won a business plan competition at MIT for that business plan.
Right.
And I tell people, you want to talk about hyper-focused, just every single line. I mean, it was just, we had to get it right the first time.
Yeah.
Went to Nebraska, drove all the way back to Nebraska on I-80, practiced the pitch the entire way back.
And here's the print being, you know, just drying as you hand it out, right?
Yep, showed up there. Nobody understood what we were doing there. Pitched to this group. We actually got a lot of interest because there was kind of a lot of e-commerce warehouse type things in Nebraska. And then we were able to there was a little bit of a competition that was created, and we were able to kind of handpick our investors. And they brought a lot to the table as far as shipping, logistics, that understanding.
Right.
And so it's kind of like, hey, we know the market, we know the consumer-facing side, but this back-end side, it wasn't just money, but it was also a lot of knowledge that they brought. And it was literally like day one, it was off to the races. We raised $500,000 because we did the math and figured in the Valley we'd need probably about $1.5 million to hit a few milestones.
Yep.
But if we relocated back, we'd only need $500K. And because we also had free warehouse, free internet, like you can't imagine like what we just
community
got for free.
Discounts, right? You know.
Yes, exactly. Billy Bob, you know, your cousin. We got the trailer park discount.
There you go.
We hit the big red button and we went go, and it was. I mean, we did the hockey stick.
Yeah.
Like we sold. It was insane. I mean, we got up to, you know, a couple thousand of subscribers in a couple of months. And we did the hockey stick that most startups only talk about. And I say that we were ignorant to the idea of not doing the hockey stick.
Right. Of course it was going to happen.
Of course.
Yeah.
We put it down on a plan.
There you go.
I got charts.
Here it is on the piece
I got
of
line
paper.
charts. I got bar graphs.
So a couple thousand. What are you up to now, and what's 2017? What are we looking for? What are we looking at?
Yeah, so we were you know, we not to sound too startup-y, but we were killing it. And probably about 2 years in, it just was this swarm of subscription boxes. So we were number 6 or 7. And within a couple years, there were thousands.
Great.
And there's over 5,000 now. And really, it just became who is willing to put more into customer acquisition costs. And so what we started doing was figuring out data mining, private label products, kind of everything. And we raised capital, but when it came to the, you know, we were doing over 500,000 monthly recurring revenue, low churn rate, our CAC to LTV, all of the startup metrics, we had it. And we went to go raise that big quote unquote, $10 million round. And we just couldn't get it. I couldn't find it. I couldn't, you know, nail down the type of investors that we needed. And so we kind of went back to the drawing board and said, all right, this isn't going to happen. Cut back to profitable, which is so painful, right? Like cutting team, I'm talking hacking away. I'm talking, you know, hey, day one, we had a $40,000 a month burn rate, and we're burning hundreds of thousands. Just go back to whatever we were doing then. And sorry if your name isn't on the list. And you want to talk about traumatic experiences when you hit the milestones and the metrics that every startup is dying for. Yeah. And you do it, and then there's nothing. The big check isn't there waiting for you. So we you know, went through that traumatic experience, cut, and then just, you know, had to get profitable, had to be self-sustaining. And one of the things that came out of the back end of that was really negotiating all of the elements of the box. the cardboard, the tape. The label can act as the tape to close the box. Do that and save 2 cents.
There we go.
And that really forced us to get that part of the business profitable. We focused on e-commerce, and we started selling through channels like Amazon. We started selling our own private label products and one-off Bulu boxes. So also, we figured out commissioned affiliate marketing and how that can work for us. So it forced us to get better at it. And then what we started to do was pick up the phone and other companies that wanted turnkey subscription box solutions, the white label box.
Here we are.
And here we are. And that has been, we have multi-billion-dollar brands that we service for turnkey subscription box solutions from just the box, or we have big websites that we build for people.
Which brings you back to the Facebook thing that you were doing for Visa and NFL. Like, you guys know how to do that. You know that relationship.
We know, yep. The advertising agency, really, we actually lead meetings, and we'll have, 9 different ad agencies in the room. And I'm like, hey, don't worry. I worked at BBDO. I know you think I'm the subscription box guy. Don't worry, everybody. I know how you work. I'm not coming for your business, ad agency XYZ. I don't care that you do the social media thing. Here's what we do.
Right.
And here's how we all need to work together. And that has been, not the highest revenue driving, but the most profitable part of our business. So we do our own box, and we do boxes for other people, and that's the future of our business.
There we go. You still love your wife. She still loves you.
More than ever.
Everybody's happy.
Little 9-month-old baby boy. Things are good.
What's his name?
Hilo, Helo.
Well, how does that work? What does that mean?
It's a secret that I can't tell you.
So that's the next podcast. Next time we interview.
It's like Bulu Box, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Next time I'll get the scoop. Hey, I got a scoop for you. There is no scoop. Okay.
Actually, it means nothing.
Yeah, Hilo doesn't mean anything.
It means nothing.
Look at that.
We gave him a blank canvas.
Okay.
We said he can make it mean whatever he wants to.
Well, except for playing football.
That's right.
Yeah. 3 final questions. I'll tell you what they are, and then I'll ask you them in order. What has most surprised you in work? What has most surprised you in life? And then on the soundtrack of your life, 1 track, 1 song that's got to be on there. First things first, what's most surprised you in work? For you, it's kind of tough because they're kind of overlappy.
What has most surprised me in work? How many people choose to, or how can I say this?
You're trying to be nice to the people.
Yeah, I am. We have one of our core values is fire the assholes at Bulu Box. It really is on the wall, big font. The most successful people that I know start with themselves before they start kind of pointing the fingers or blaming other things. So the most what I've learned that's important at work is that you need to start with a level of self-awareness of who you are. Kind of point the finger at yourself before you start
three fingers pointing back. That's,
yeah,
take these 3 fingers first.
Man, I'm going to use that.
Oh, you haven't heard that?
No.
Yeah, 3 fingers pointing back. So let's do these 3 before we do that one.
That is amazing.
Take it, run with it.
I am going to. So the most successful people that I know, they're very self-aware and self-reflective, and they figure that out. And the probably the people that you don't want to work with or that are going to be a challenge, they're kind of blaming everything else. And that's shocking. Once you become aware to that, how much you see it. And I literally just gravitate towards those people that say, well, maybe I can do something. I'm like, hey, I want to work with you or for you or something.
Absolutely. Excuses? We don't need excuses, right?
Solutions.
Yeah,
Man.
there you
no
go.
No more failure, just lessons.
Just lessons. What has most surprised you in life?
Most surprised me in life. I think actually related to that, I was one of those people that pointed the finger at everything else.
Did you? I didn't hear that when we just went through your whole thing.
Yeah, I think, I was frustrated with ad agencies. I was frustrated with everything.
Right.
And, my wife really helped me kind of, I'd say, 2 years into the business, I was a perfectionist in every single thing, not only in the business, but in life. When I talk about that kind of discipline and meticulousness, right? I was like that with our business, and becoming self-aware to probably being a little bit obsessive, and then also being incredibly hard. That inner voice of mine was like really terrible, and I never thought about how you talk to yourself, right?
Sure.
And my wife kind of looked at me one day, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, like, what do you say to yourself?" And I'm like, "Oh, not good enough, like, idiot, like, keep." And so that same thing, that is, it's. I tell people, I actually give some talks on this. I say it's a really powerful beast. And if you can harness it, it's incredible. Yeah. But if you let that thing run wild, it'll kill you.
Totally.
It'll hunt you down and kill you. And so that's been the biggest thing for me in my life is just becoming self-aware, controlling that voice, and just knowing it's never going to be good enough, and that's okay.
Yeah, I used to do the very same thing of like that internal voice being like pretty evil, towards yourself, of just like, you've got to do better than this, but with words that were different.
My wife said to me, it literally, I don't have any problem saying this now. It feels, I say when you can talk about things like this, it's another level of confidence. But 2 years in, when I was working with something on my wife, and she could just tell I was just distraught, and we had won all these awards and we're doing, all this stuff. But I went on a walk with her, and she's like, "What is wrong with you? You're just, you're on everybody's eyes. You're da 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 da." And she said, "I even heard you just kind of cursing under your breath at your desk." And I said, "Man, and I just went off." And she said, "Wait. Is that what you're saying to yourself?" And I go, "Well, yeah." And she goes, "Would you ever talk to me like that?" And I go, "No." And she goes, "Would you talk to your mother like that?" I was like, "God, no."
Absolutely.
And she goes, "So why is it the most important person in the world, you're talking to them like that?" And it just destroyed me.
We like her. She's good.
Yeah, she has a great inner voice, and that just changed the whole course of my life. So
there you go. That's a good one. That's a big one.
It was good. Yeah.
All right, soundtrack time. Soundtrack of your life. Name one track, one song that's got to be on there.
So I'm a super nerdy hip hop guy.
Okay.
And there is a remix by a guy named Asher Roth. Lil Wayne's Millie? A Millie?
Sure. That's not believable that I said sure. Because I don't.
Okay. You're like, hip hop, are you kidding me?
I know old school hip hop. I mean, if you want to go back to
don't get me started. That is, if people say, "Do you have a hobby?" It is studying hip hop. So Herc and like where it actually originated. And,
sure.
and
you're talking about the Bronx with Herc right there.
Oh, yeah. And talking about, like what the breaks mean, and all, like that's my jam.
You know who Africa Bambaataa is.
Oh God,
right?
yes.
There you go.
Zulu Nation. Yeah, Zulu Nation. So yeah, nerdy guy from Nebraska studies all of that stuff because everybody in the trailer park was listening to AC/DC. And somebody gave me an NWA CD.
There you go.
It was way more hardcore. You talk about like curse word, like go ahead and play your Guns N' Roses. I'm gonna drop some mother effer, and that is way more hardcore than your stuff, neighbor guy.
Yeah, straight out of Compton.
Yeah, exactly. But there's a remix, and it's by a obscure rapper named Asher Roth, and it's a remix to a Millie. And basically, Lil Wayne's song is about making $1 million and screw everybody and, whatever, I'm going to make this money. But Asher Roth's version is about, it doesn't really matter if you make the money if you're not doing good with it.
Like, this is the perfect song for you.
And it's a really cheesy song, but that's my jam. Asher Roth's a Millie, and it's all about doing well by people.
Come on. Paul Jarrett, this has been a damn pleasure.
Hey, man. Love it. We should do it again. Let's start a podcast.
Sure.
Yeah.
And there you have Paul Jarrett. You've got the trailer park. You've got going to New York and actually getting the interview, or at least the resume to the right person, and then actually getting the job of his desire, and, then going back home and doing what he's doing. So thanks to him. Thanks to you. Stay tuned.